Sustainability Committee meeting, Monday, March 2nd. Call it to order. Any declarations of conflict of interest?
None.
Seeing none, looking for approval of the agenda.
Moved.
Moved by your worship, seconded by Councillor Twill.
Just as, now that the resolution's on the floor, just under new business, I wanted to just give notice to a proposal from Duncan Shaw. He's with a company out of Georgia. It's regarding cellular, not cellular, but batteries for storing energy, solar energy. And I just wanna pass that information on to our staff. I know Duncan did send an email to Nick Walker, who is our new person, yeah, so I'd like to get just to follow up on that, thank you.
Thank you, we'll bring that up under new
Yeah.
business. Need approval of minutes from December 17th, 2025.
Moved.
Councillor Beck, moved by your worship, secondly Councillor Twill. Any business arising from those minutes? Maybe?
No.
No?
No, sir.
Councillor Twill? All right, we'll move into reports and discussions. 6A, Simon, Europe, 2026 Charlottetown Urban Forest Update.
Mr. Chair, I'll just provide a brief summary of the report that was in the package. So we're looking at another good year of planting, and we've received confirmation of outside funding as well to support those initiatives. We're looking at planting between 3,000 and 4,000 trees and shrubs in 2026. I'll break this up kind of like on the basis of how the budget is structured. So our spring trees that are our large ball and burlap trees that are paid for by the capital budget, we're looking at planting 147 of those in the spring. 96 of those trees are resident requests for street or park trees, with our staff fulfilling those. Approximately 76% are native to the Wabanaki Acadian Forest region or the Eastern Deciduous Forest. So that's a great breakdown for that. We've got a couple of memorial trees planned for Victoria Park as well. The memorial tree program has been in effect for a number of years, and it's on our website, and people are still taking advantage of that, which is a great living memorial for people. The FCM project is entering into its second year, so we'll be planting approximately 1,400 trees and shrubs for that in Wrights Creek, Ellens Creek, Hermitage Creek, and Windsor Park. We are continuing to focus on Victoria Park in 2026. As I spoke before in our full update, the park was significantly impacted by Fiona, is being impacted by invasive species, and its current canopy, particularly in the lower section, is declining rapidly as a result of the beech bark canker and beech leaf mining weevil, both interacting and causing our beech trees to die very quickly. So, as you will probably remember, we do have a new initiative on the cards for 2026 in their budget, and this was to provide some seasonal staff to support our efforts in Victoria Park and our downtown parks with restoration work. Currently, in the urban forestry team, we work with parks, and we have 2 members of staff. Each one, half of their time is dedicated to restoration work. So, as you can imagine, with the work that needs to happen in Victoria Park, this is not enough for us to be able to do what we need to do to continue to steward that park. So we have received some outside funding for from Trees for Life. The agreement is currently sitting with Mr. Mayor to
It's already signed up.
It's signed off. Excellent. That's very efficient. I appreciate that. So that funding will help support planting in Victoria Park, providing money for the trees and shrubs, as well as work in J. Frank Macaulay and Upton Park as well. We're also going to be starting a major initiative in River Ridge Park. That one currently is basically just like a large green field, so we'll be engaging in planting that. We have,
Where's that, Simon? Sorry.
you know, oh wow, I'm terrible with names of roads. I'm going to look at my colleague Morgan to say that.
Where was it, sorry?
River Ridge? What's
Oh,
Arcadia Drive.
Yeah,
yeah, there's River Ridge Drive and,
Remember the old TP, the
It's not by the-
Hambley Trailer Park?
No, it's not down there.
No,
That's-
not that far.
That's where the
Ridge-
estates.
no.
it's across from there. It's kind of like the trailer park, and then there's Acadian Drive, and then it's on the other side of that. There's a group like a subdivision wrapped around the outside and a large field in the middle, basically, that we own. It's like lots of sea-related names of streets around there.
Sea-
Longboat, Sea Pine.
Sea Pine.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the one. It's I'm terrible with street names. But yeah, we're planning a major initiative there. I think we're going to have some funds from an outside source for that as well, supporting some other funds we had last year from Maritime Electric as well. So that will be a big initiative. We're also looking at planting on Queen Street to add some trees where we currently have parking spaces that are currently they kind of have brick tiles on them, and they don't currently have any trees in them. They used to, that they died, replaced. It's not working. Planting trees in those spaces is not working with the current structure. So we're looking at working with Public Works to create a curb around those spots, remove those bricks, raise their soil level, and provide some good soil in there, and then to plant in those spaces as well.
So would that be in, like, if you go down Lower Queen Street, there's a couple of places there that you can't park, you can't do anything.
Exactly.
So the ones you're
those
talking about.
spaces, yeah. They previously had trees. Some of them had a few trees at multiple times, but it's very unconducive of a tree planting growing in that spot.
So, just on that, are you looking to relocate the tree planting to another part of, sidewalk or closer to the street? Or you're just looking to replant it there, reinstate that tree, replant that tree with enhancing and improving the amenities that are around it? Is that the objective?
So through you, Mr. Chair, essentially what we're going to do is, if you imagine there's the parking space that's currently there, we're going to want to put a curb around that entire spot. So we raise the level up by 8 to 12 inches, and then we're going to remove the bricks in that spot. And the bricks are really compressing the soil, and they're really making it hard for the trees to grow, and they're preventing sort of aeration and the water to allow the roots to kind of prosper and the tree to grow. And then we're going to sort of till that up a bit, put some decent soil in there, put the tree back where it was before, now with all this additional resource around it. Now, the spaces are quite big, so the hope is that we'll be able to use that for half of the space, and then the other half of the space, we're looking at whether we can do like a bike parking or something like that on it with like bike racks. So it will be quite a nice little spot in those spaces.
Two things. One is, has there been any discussions with the report on the parking strategy? So it was retained by the city. They're working through Public Works, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Public Works, I'm sure police is involved. So, parking seems to be, well, it is a concern. I just wonder, have you or staff and environmental sustainability looked at maybe relocating those trees to another area of Queen Street? So maybe to free up those spaces potentially for parking. And when you talk about replanting, and I know you kind of described going down, 10 or 12 inches down below, you're not gonna come back with the cobblestone.
No.
No, okay, so how does that affect the frost below, whatever you're gonna plant around it? Will we still experience a thawing and then the freezing and the thawing so that everything is off kilter? I mean, if you just look around the city now, we had that same issue on Victoria Road, where when they first put the cobblestone down, they didn't get down far enough. So they went down about 4 feet to avoid the frost. And I just wondered, are you using that same strategy? Are you looking at that same strategy, or is it just status quo, only going down so far? Because then you're into the same thing, like I said, thawing, freezing, thawing. Victoria Row has worked out quite well after they revitalized it and went down 4 feet below ground level to avoid the frost. Just wonder if you taken any of those points into consideration.
Certainly, and through you, Mr. Chair, essentially, first of all, we're obviously tree guys, so we defer to Public Works for anything that's cement and concrete related. So we're working in partnership with Public Works, as obviously, as you mentioned, they were leading the parking strategy and those things. We're not taking away any spaces that are currently parking. We're only using spaces that were currently not for parking. In terms of the value of those spaces for parking versus for trees, I would say that Queen Street is one of our premier tourist locations, and having shade trees on that area should be an absolute priority, because in 30 degrees it's very uncomfortable walking down a street that doesn't have any shade on it. And we want our summer business really to be people to be slowly meandering down that street rather than sprinting down there to out the heat.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about relocating, taking into consideration the relocation of planting the trees. So it's not in the parking spots, and it could be near the sidewalk, could be on the, near the street. I'm not really sure. I know the importance of planting trees, and I hope to see more trees in Queen Street. Just wondering, because it's been a challenge, as you pointed out, it's been a major challenge.
Yeah.
And some of the other amenities that are parked and that are planted are installed in the middle of once were parking spaces, and some of these amenities they continuously get damaged, and it just looks terrible. It really does. It doesn't do anything to enhance the streetscapes. It doesn't do anything to enhance what we're trying to create in downtown Sherrilltown. So just wonder if there's been any further discussions with Public Works to look at what the possibilities are. What are the options? What are again, we have a parking strategy in place now. We've got consultants. I would suggest it requires further investigation, more discussions. I like the idea of 30 trees. I hope it's 330 trees for that matter. But I just wonder, by utilizing the same strategy, which has been extremely challenging, whether or not we should be adhering to that same challenge that hasn't worked out.
Mr. Chair,
It's not,
just a point of order.
yeah,
I know in the pressure of time, because Councillor Tweel has to leave at 1.
Yeah.
We have 3 items here.
No, I understand that, Mr. Mayor. I
Can just
understand.
finish?
No, I understand.
I'm on a point of order.
Yeah,
Could I
okay.
just finish?
Yeah.
So I think what Simon is doing here is just outlining what is going to be done. As for Queen Street, both of us were on council when that was instituted or that project started, and it was successful, but over the years it didn't work. Anyways, I would just ask if we can just keep going on with this report,
Yeah, okay.
Mr.
okay.
Chair.
yeah, no,
Mr.
I
Chair,
agree, I was just gonna say the same. I agree with what you're saying,
Yeah.
but this is not the place. He's just giving us a strategy for the planning, what
No,
he's
I
what they're planning on
understand
doing.
that, but I think it is, with all due respect, it is
Well,
relevant.
I think that
So
should be brought up at Public Works.
Well, and collaboration with environment sustainability, so I'd
And
like you
you're
to
in the
look into
chair
that
for
further.
Public Works,
That's
so
all I'm
you bring
asking.
it up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want you to investigate that
Carry
further.
on, please, Simon.
Yeah, I will do, and just to say that Public Works and this is a collaboration, and Public Works and I have been out there a lot, so this is definitely not an ENS thing alone. This is we did have a new initiative for us to look at private working on private businesses and institutional property as well this year. So if we are able to institute that, we will be increasing our target for the number of trees. In terms of tree operations, tree maintenance will be continuing this year. We do have our first city arborist that they're hired under Public Works but coordinated, their work's coordinated by ENS, and so we're hoping to increase the amount of tree maintenance we're able to do. Obviously, we have decades of backlog because we haven't been able to keep up with the tree maintenance need. So that is enormously needed work. Stump management will continue. We have 580 stumps remaining from post-tropical storm Fiona across the city. That's the city-owned ones. We have funding to remove 267 this year. When we've had that for a while, we haven't been able to keep up, mainly due to constraints from Public Works capacity to reinstate. Our Dutch elm disease management program will be continuing. Since its inception, 563 diseased or dead elms have been removed, and 619 elms are currently documented in the city's inventory on public and private land. They're all assessed for disease annually throughout the growing seasons. In 2025, one elm was identified with Dutch elm disease, and that will be removed in 2026. We've been treated since 2015, 20 elms have received treatment in order to help them fight off Dutch elm disease. The city continuing with that. We have two elms we're going to be treating with fungicide for 2026. So that's it at breakneck pace. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to.
A couple, just, if you don't mind, I'll start at the bottom. The Dutch elm disease, what's the success rate with the treatment of the trees of the Dutch elm?
Those treated seem to have been resistant. Have there been any?
So far, so good. It's like in text or research shows that the Arbortech 20S that I use to treat them with is supposed to have a 95% success rate, or not, I think 95 to 98% success rate. Yeah.
Excellent. And I'm glad to see the work that you're doing for Victoria Park. Councillor Twill has been a big advocate for Victoria Park restoration.
Yeah.
Through my time in ENS, so good to see that. Spring trees, where, do you have a location of where your spring trees are gonna be planted? Your spring trees,
Oh, the big ones.
yeah, when you had mentioned spring trees there was just no,
The cap. They're planted all over the city, so parks and streets across. So it would be it's a long list, and it gets tweaked a lot at this time of year because we have to get the locates done, and people sneak an extra pipe in or a fiber optic cable, and then we find we can't quite put it there. But locates are currently out, and so we're just confirming the exact locations now. The parks ones are pretty firm on.
just one more question. Is there a tender going out or has gone out for the tree stump maintenance?
That will be going out shortly. Probably over the course of next month it will go out.
Okay.
Before the next committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair,
Councillor Twill. Okay, he had his hand up, sorry.
okay, go ahead.
Councillor Twill.
You indicated in your presentation, 96 trees have been requested by residents.
Mhm.
Can you give me a synopsis as to where do you think the majority of those trees are being planted? Or is that difficult?
Well, it's difficult in the sense that there's a very long list of locations. Morgan, can you want to rattle out a few, do you know of?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. It's hard to give you like a percentage, but there's been a lot of requests, particularly in Ward 8. Just kind of an example by wards. Ward 8, and quite a few in Ward 3 and 9. Just off the top of my head.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, thank you. As you know, I've been advocating for tree planting, and Jessica's made it clear previously that the challenge is, particularly some of the streets in Ward 4, I come back to Upper Prince Street, a very historical street in our city, Walton Drives, that the infrastructure seems to be an impediment and is an obstacle. When I see a majority of the trees in our strategy, and I just look at some of the parks, a lot of these parks are in the suburban communities, and I think that's great. But in the heart of the city, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. So challenges or no challenges, there's gotta be a way that we can, replant some of them trees, because you go back in time, some of the nicest trees in this city was in that community. The upper Prince Streets, the Waltham Drives, all in through there. And what was indicative of that during Fiona, some of those big trees, those are monsters that come down during Fiona. And that's a case in point, that a lot of those trees, coupled with the fact of the Dutch elm disease, again, this community's been hit hard by the Dutch elm disease and by Fiona. And somewhere along the line, whether the challenge is infrastructure, being in the way, being an obstacle, I'd like to see a strategy, and maybe you can do a jurisdictional scan, as to what that strategy could look like to replant some of them trees in some of these older neighborhoods and communities. Because that was one of the wonderful characteristic traits of these communities. And I'm gonna keep pounding away there until we have a strategy in place. Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Chair, just to say, obviously, Victoria Park, Frank Macaulay, River Ridge, Allens Creek, the West Royalty Community Centre, obviously they're identified those as being locations where we're doing big plantings. The numbers, when we talk about big numbers of plantings, the reason why they're often in suburban areas is because those parks are just like green fields all the time, so we can get higher numbers in those, whereas the downtown parks, it's much more selective. So for example, Centennial Park, we're planting about 30 trees there this year, which for Centennial Park is a large number of trees, because they're standalone specimen trees. That number I know sounds very small compared to planting 1,000 in Windsor, but Windsor was a field, so it's a lot easier, and we're planting a lot smaller trees. So with our historical sites, and we're planting in which square? One of the squares this year? Which one is it? It's one Hillsborough Square as well. So we're doing those as well. It's just that their numbers are smaller because it's already an established park. They have trees already in them, and it's a lot more structured in those spaces. But absolutely, we completely agree. We want to put trees in the downtown core, and that's why, for me at least, Victoria Park restoration is such an important thing, particularly the forested area, because that forested area desperately needs stewardship.
Mr. Chair? First.
Go ahead.
Second. Yeah. You can call him third. So, Simon, it's great that we're having this conversation about trees, because this has been, has really been a result of Hurricane Fiona, and then if you go back to Hurricane Juan. But Hurricane Juan, I don't recall that we were that much invested in replacing the trees. Fiona, we've really accelerated the effort to replace them. And with an inventory of 13,000 trees, and as mentioned, there are many historic parts in the city. I can go down to Ambrose, Greenfield Avenue, where there's some beautiful old trees. That's the old Brighton. You can go to other parts of the city, and in East Royalty, you'll see tree growth that has been there for 100 years plus. So my question is, we get 13,000 trees. As we plant more, and I did see the document for Canadian Trees for Life, and the agreement is looking at Victoria Park, J. Frank Macaulay Park, and Upton Park.
Yeah.
So the big effort will be to maintain these.
Mm-hmm.
And staff right now, Morgan, how many would we have for ensuring that, new trees planted are watered, are cared for? What's the plan for that? That's my concern.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the big again, it's one of there's different types of plantings that we do. So the big numbers come from the natural area plantings, where we're trying to plant in a way that minimizes our stewardship necessity. So part of the process that we go through is we're trying to plant effectively whole ecosystems, so that we're not having them being overtaken by species that we don't want invasive or just weeds or whatnot. So we're taking the turf away. We're creating basically a large module where we're putting wood chips down and planting in sort of high density areas with trees, shrubs, ferns, and other herbaceous species all in one go, exactly to minimize that ongoing staffing number. I will say that 13,000 number that you mentioned, that's our standalone and street tree number. It's not our trees that are in the forests. Those aren't included in that number. So if we were actually to have the whole number, it would be much higher across the city. But that's what we call our inventory trees. So they have to be sort of standalone for that.
And I'm glad you clarified it, because it says this will shift tree work from reactive responses to a more scheduled maintenance approach across the city's inventory of more than 13,000 trees. But as you said, there are more than 13,000 trees.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All the trees in Victoria Park are not numbered as such, although I think we know most of them quite well.
Thank you.
Councillor.
Yeah, I just wanna go back to 96 trees for a minute. Aren't those residential trees that would be planted like in backyards and, no,
They're on the street. They're requests on the street.
they request on the street, okay.
Yeah, or in a park. They can request for in a park as well. So Robin Hood
okay.
Park, for example, a resident requested some trees in that park. So we've put a couple of trees on that one.
Okay, and do we have enough to can we accommodate 96 or
Oh,
can
yeah.
we accommodate more than 96?
We can sorry for you, Mr. Chair. We can accommodate. The limit is the staff we have to plant.
Right,
In terms of space, we have a lot of. I don't expect to run out of space to plant trees in my career in Charlottetown.
okay, thank you.
Councillor Coe.
Yeah, just wanna go back, I
You
don't
can, Councillor
know
Beck.
if anyone around this table remembers when Beth Orr was with the city of Charlottetown. Beth was instrumental in planting a lot of trees in Victoria. She began, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Beth began the process of planting trees in Victoria Park. She, in fact, her office at that time was in the clubhouse, down at the baseball clubhouse, and she worked out of there all year round. It'd be interesting, were you there then too?
They still work there.
We still work there. We were both hired by Beth
Okay.
as well.
So I guess my question is, could we get from when Beth first started, I'd like to have just a general idea of how many trees have been actually planted in Victoria Park. I know you might not have the number now, but if you could, for future reference, I'd be interested in just how many trees were planted. Beth was, a great employee and did a great job for us. So I'd just like to know where we're at today, do a comparative analysis.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Beth was initially hired specifically to work on Victoria Park, and her position evolved into my position today through things. So it's interesting you bring that up, because essentially what I think the evolution of that was effectively that Beth came in to work on Victoria Park, but as we realised there were a lot of parks that all need a lot of work, that kind of moved the attention more broadly. But as we've had the devastating effects of Fiona, but also increasing effects of invasive species come in, we need to go back to having more focus on restoring Victoria Park, because it's such a priority for the city, such a jewel and such a tourist attraction, community hub. So but yeah, we both regard Beth as our mentor. So living on her legacy.
Thank you very much. In my regrets, I have to depart. Your worship, will you take over and
Drive safe, man.
another meeting tonight?
Drive safe.
6B.
Thanks.
All
Great discussion.
Good. 6B, so that's Anna,
See you tonight.
That's right.
page 9 in our document.
Very good. So today I have two reports. One is, and this item is the annual State of Transit update, summarizing where we are on transit at the end of 2025. My first one of these was at the end of 2024, following our 10-year active transportation plan. I suspect that on today's agenda, you might all have more interest in my second report, which is the next agenda item, which is where the expansions are proposed for next year. So, Chair, I would just encourage you to make sure that time is left for that one in the discussion. But in the State of Transit report, we start with a look at ridership, a look at the strengths and known areas for improvement for the transit system. And then the second part of the report just talks on what was in our 10-year transit plan, all of the recommendations for the first 2 years, and gives an update on those. So, and I'm glad to report that most of those are either complete or are on track, in progress, being planned, or in budget proposals for next year. So I think there's a lot of content in here. It's all for information. There's no key decisions to be made today, but I wanted to make sure that I was available to answer your questions about anything that's there in the report.
Any questions, Councillor Creel, or? So, are you referring to the report or just general question? I just wanted to.
Well, we're talking about
Number 2.
Well, let's go to item number 2. Annual State of Transit Update, year-end 2025. So if you look at the conclusion of 2025, have all the goals been achieved that was set out by staff, supported by the committee and council? Have all the goals been achieved? What were the strengths of the last year and what were the weaknesses?
Sure. I would say that when I had the opportunity to write this report, I made sure to look back at our previous year's report, and we have made an immense amount of progress since that time. It's quite gratifying to compare the two. We're very much in progress on many of the goals, but we are on track. So we have completed substantial expansions, and in this year's operating budget, or the operating budget currently being proposed for next year, we've got some major expansions planned. I think the biggest success of the past year has been the decision to move forward with ordering a large number of buses to replace and expand the fleet. Basically, between the 2 years, if we look back to August 2024, we had 16 very aged buses in a fleet of 22. And so that was an urgent situation, but now there's been, proper allocation of funding. Buses have been ordered. We've received the first, I think 5 or 6 of those. We've got 2 new electric minibuses that will be arriving by March of next year, and we have another 10 buses on order that will arrive in the next 18 months. And so basically all of that gets us to the point where we will be able to say confidently, and I think now our operator also has confidence, that we will have a bus fleet that is not operating any buses after the end of their scheduled lifespan. And so that's a great position to be in, and it means that we can, now that we've done the fleet renewal, we can confidently expand our operational hours, knowing that we're not going to be caught in a place where our fleet, suddenly has breakdowns and we're not able to deliver those operational plans. So that's I think the biggest success of the last year. And giving that, and I think we've learned a lot about the relative responsibilities of the operator and the municipality. We're working our way through contract negotiations, and I think we're at a really good place in terms of the relationship between staff and our operator now, and it's enabling us to look forward.
If just to follow up on that, just on what you stated, if we were to go out into the community and ask for feedback from the community, would the community, for example, be pleased with the progress that's been made over the last year? Would they be pleased with the direction that we're heading towards, the goals and aspirations of where we want to be, what we've accomplished over the last year? I know you're talking to people in the community regarding transit, where they'd like to see the service, where they'd like to see improvements.
Yeah.
Everything from bus shelters to amenities around the bus shelters.
Yeah.
From your perspective, would you say the community's pleased? Are they happy with where we're at, or are they mixed reaction? Well, you had to put your finger on it, what would you say?
I think it's a really excellent question and should be central to the work that we do on transit. I think a lot of the work that we've achieved in the last year has really been behind the scenes, and so it's been sort of solidifying our fleet. And people might not notice so much if they're on a brand new bus versus an old bus because it's still a bus taking them to where they want to go. But all of that work that we've done in the background, I think, is preparing for really strong upgrades that will be much more substantial to meet the demands that we know that we have. So in the feedback on our 10-year transit plan, we knew that the highest demand from our residents was for improved evening services and weekend services, and we still have not delivered that. That's part of what's in the budget request for the coming year. So that, if you live in Winslow, we did a big expansion in East Royalty for weekday services, but if you live in East Royalty or Winslow, you still cannot catch a bus on the weekend. And if you live anywhere aside from Route 1 in the whole city, you currently can't get service on a Sunday. And so that's what's in our budget request for the coming year. But in order to be able to make that budget request, we did need to do the work in the background, which is to solidify the fleet and make sure that we have sufficient buses. So, we still do, I suppose, especially during this season, we do get requests about snow clearing. So we're definitely making more progress on that. We've started implementation to 18 bus stop improvements, and we've got designs for another 47 bus stops, which will roll out steadily over the next few years. But I'm really glad that we're at that point where we now have those designs, and we just have to go through the process of procuring the construction work to happen on those and allocating budget.
Is there any difference between? Is that all right, Councillor Twill? Because I want to move on, because again, it's time.
No, yeah, that's fine.
Go ahead.
Just a quick question, is there any difference in design? Like we've got, I think, 12 or 6, or I forget. Is there any difference in design from one shelter or bench area to another? Are they all kind of unique? Do they all have to be kind of tailored to the particular area?
Yeah. Most of our small shelters are the same, 4-foot by 8-foot shelter. The ones that we've ordered this year are of the same design with the peaked roof as previous ones. I think in future years we may look at, a more modern design. But there are some bus stops that have very large passenger numbers where we have requested a custom design that accommodate. Instead of just accommodating 3 or 4 people waiting at a time, it might be able to accommodate 10, 15, or 20. And so obviously those bus shelters are more expensive, but they're also where we have the most ridership.
Right, okay, thank you.
So, Anna, if I look at page 12, service expansions, you talk about the additional funding. But I went back to our minutes for the December 3rd. We spoke about the transit budget in a closed meeting.
That's correct.
So can we make references to what our budget will go from 25 or 24, 25, or no, 25, 26 to 26, 27?
I'll let Jessica take that one.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So Anna and I did speak of that, but because we weren't talking specifically about matters in the contract or in the agreement, it was just generally about service we're proposing.
Yeah.
Then we thought it would be fine to speak about today.
Okay, so if you do the math, right? Again, this is going back to what we discussed in the December 3rd. Their budget for 25, 26 for transit was 2.5 million. For 26, 27, what are we proposing?
Yeah, so again, I don't wanna get into the closed
Okay,
session
so-
details,
but
but we wanted to
I
present
know
you
that's why I asked the
regardless of-
question.
yeah.
In your Anna's report, she gives some of the cost increases, but we can't discuss them because we had a closed meeting for the transit budget. So I just think going forward, if we have to be, if we're gonna be open, well, let's be open about it. But I think we're just now going halfway today and saying, okay, we can talk about it, but we can't look at the real, like what we're proposing here.
I think Anna's gonna jump in too, but what I was gonna say was regardless of how we pay our contractor, regardless, these would be the operational recommendations we would bring forward. So we don't necessarily have to speak to how much we're paying them and how we're paying them, but we were going to outline to you what we would like to do. So Anna, did you wanna add to that?
If I can just go back, but the budget doesn't talk about, are you saying that in this, you have a transit contract line item that is still confidential and should be in closed meeting? Like that's, again, I'm just trying to get clarification. I should have brought this up when we had the meeting back on December 3rd. Anyways, I'll leave it as is, but going forward, I think that just looking at your breakdown there, Anna, you know, the numbers there and expand service hours, weekend service. Like, for example, under weekend service, you're looking at an additional, 400, now that the 10-year plan recommended operational expansions of 400,000 per year for the next 10 years.
Yes, so
That's a big, it's a big claw on a budget that is pretty tight now and going into the future will be.
So I'll just add that the expansions per year are based on the recommendations for the 10-year plan, which is already public information.
Right.
And so the recommendations of the plan are to bring us up to the level of transit service that is provided in comparable municipalities of a similar size. And so all I can do is to say that this is what is recommended by our consultants to bring us up to a comparable level of service. This is what it will cost, and then it's up to you as councillors to decide on the amount.
This is the last point, I know we wanna get moving on, but comparable transit systems, again, we're in a unique group, it's called Triple P, Private-Public Partnership. I know we made reference to St. John's, they're a Triple P, but if you talk to, you know, I know people who live there, their system does not work like the system that we have here in Charlottetown, and I think Councillor Beck has heard that from his CCCO members from St. John. So again, the comparisons, we're not a totally public transit, we're a Triple P. So that puts us in a pretty unique.
Is that the accurate description of what we actually have, the
Yeah.
model that we have?
Yeah, it's
I
a
thought
triple,
it was entrepreneurial.
same thing, well, I think what our provider is using is, he's used an entrepreneurial model to determine what is the best cost or the fair cost of taking the bus. And we're compared that to a public system, totally public, I think there's a difference in entrepreneurial, which is under the Triple P umbrella. But Councillor Twill, I think we're gonna have to have more discussions on this in the coming days, because this is, as our CIO is here, we have to get our budget down by March 31st, so you'll see these numbers as we go forward. And they're in your package from our December 3rd meeting.
Yes, and through you, Mr. Chair, so this was just to get ahead of that in a way to expand on, when you see the budget request for transit, this is the operational changes that is being proposed.
So that would be the second of my two reports, so.
So can we go to the next report, is that all right? Good, Councillor Twill? So that starts on page. It's page 15.
Page 16.
16, good. Okay, go ahead.
Great. So when we came to you all in November, end of November, November 25th, 2025, we had presented with an overall budget for transit service expansions next year, so a new initiatives proposal. And that identified some known priorities at that time, as well as a sort of buffer for ideas that we hadn't fully locked in in discussions between myself and the operator. I meet with the transit manager, Homayoun Sayafi, at T3 Transit every 2 weeks, and we've gone back and forth quite a lot, and we've settled on this as our joint recommendation. There are 3 priority levels within the overall spend. The total spend is $454,000, including both service hours and fuel costs, and then resulting from that spend, we would anticipate a growth in revenue of approximately $85,000, resulting from expanded fare revenue. And so the three areas of priority, so I'll touch on the first priority first. This is to add Sunday services on what we know as our core routes. So our core routes are Route 1, 2, 3, and 23.
What are, remind me what 2,
Yes.
3, and 23
So
are?
I'll work through those. So Route 1 up and down University Avenue. Route 2 basically goes up and down North River Road. It goes to the West Royalty Industrial Park and loops back down Lower Mulpeck Road to return to the Royalty Crossing Mall. So it sort of covers that whole west half of the city. Route 3 goes out St. Peter's Road and then sort of winds back through the Sherwood, sort of goes out St. Peter's Road to Stone Park and then comes back down along Lincolnwood and Maple and Belvedere, goes up the back of UPEI and again to the Royalty Crossing Mall. And Route 23 also covers the eastern side of the city, but a little bit further out. So it goes up Kensington Road and goes all the way out to Hillsborough Park, to Norwood Road, across Oak Avenue in Sherwood, and then comes into the back of the Royalty Crossing Mall. So all three of these routes start and end at downtown and the Royalty Crossing Mall. Route 1 is straight up the middle, Route 2 and 3 and 23 sort of go around. And they're the core of the network. They're operating Monday to Friday. They also operate on Saturdays, but on Sundays, routes 2, 3, and 23 disappear, and we only have Route 1 going up and down the avenue.
So when they get to the mall, they just loop back on the same route? Like say
Technically,
23 goes
yeah,
up Kensington Road, out Norwood, Oak, all that, to the mall, and then does the same route back?
yes. Routes 2 and 3, they interline with each other, so they actually, if you were to stay on the bus, Route 3 would become Route 2 and come down the opposite side of the city, but in practice, whether it does this or whether it does this is the same in effect to the public. So the total cost of adding those, we call that 24 service hours, so that would be 3 routes, 8 hours a day on Sundays. It would start a little later than our Saturday service, so it would be, I think, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that would cost a little over $100,000. In addition to that, evening services has long been a demand. Currently, there's basically most of our services stop, including on our core routes, except for Route 1. Route 1 continues until 10 p.m. But on those core routes and East Royalty, they all stop at 6:45. And then there are 3 what we call just drop-off services, which they all start at Royalty Crossing Mall, and I think it's at 7:15, at 8:30, and at 7:15, 8:45, and 9:30. And if you get on one of those buses, you then ask the driver, can you drop me off at a certain location? And they'll do a customized drop-off for whoever is on the bus. But they're not a regular service, they don't do pickups in the evenings. And so we would add another 4 service hours each weekday, Monday to Friday, so 20 service hours over a week, to basically enable us to have a half-hour service. So we have a regular service going later into the evening and then a half-hour service for those drop-offs, so that there is just a more reliable way for people to get home. And that starts to transition transit from being only a sort of 8 to 4 p.m. or 9 to 5 p.m. commuter-oriented service to get to work, and enables you to live your whole life with, transit as your way of getting around and to access recreational opportunities, to be able to go out for dinner in the evening and to reliably be able to get home. So that's about another $86,000. And then we have just a small request of another $10,000, which is 1 extra service in the weekday evenings on Route 1. And that's to relieve some congestion that we have at that time. So that total request for just our priority 1 services, the most important things, myself and the operator agree, and this is very strong feedback in the 10-year transit plan, that evenings and weekends are the biggest priority. This will also lead to high ridership growth because it's like adding an extra day of service. So instead of having sort of 6.5 days of service, we would now have 7 days of real service, and so we can expect it to lead to a pretty significant boost in ridership if this is invested in. Going into the second priorities,
8 hours is 8 to 4, or 9 to 5, or 10 to,
10
10
to
to
6 on a Sunday, yeah. Yeah.
So you still go to church.
Then, and that's informed by,
Yeah.
when we see transit riders starting to jump on Route
Yeah.
1 on a Sunday and when shops are open and all of that sort of stuff. The second priority areas, these are less expected to lead to big boosts in ridership, but they are important for providing service. So it's about looking at routes 10 and 11. So Route 10 serves East Royalty, Route 11 serves both Winslow and the airport area. And neither of those have any service on weekends, including not on Saturdays currently. And we know that in the Winslow area, like the new Hidden Valley subdivision, there's a lot of new development going on there, and so
that's provincial property too,
yeah,
affordable housing unit.
yeah.
What's
and
that?
Got the affordable housing unit there too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
470 Montpec Road.
Exactly, and so enabling people who live in those areas to get around by transit also on weekends is a valuable investment. And so there's a proposal for adding those two services, which are more outlying services, on Saturdays, on Sundays. The third line under priority 2 is separating Route 11 into Airport and Hidden Valley, so 2 sides on weekday mornings. We would actually split Route 11, which currently does this sort of 45-minute loop. It goes out to the airport and then across to Hidden Valley and then back to the Royalty Crossing Mall. Our operator is finding that in the mornings that gets hit by congestion, takes quite a lot of time, and they would like to separate it into 2 routes, basically Route 11 and Route 12, doing each side of that route so that they can get people faster to where they want to go. And so that would involve adding an extra 4.5 service hours per day to sort of, just to beef up Route 11 and to make sure that people can get where they want to go faster without congestion jamming things up.
What kind of usage do we get for the airport?
A lot of people who are going to work shift, so although it is named the airport, you can really think of that as Sherwood Road, McAleer Drive, industrial area. So most of the people using that bus would be getting to and from work shifts in the industrial zone.
Okay.
It swings through the airport, but the airport itself is not a huge driver. BioVectra is a big driver of passengers on that route.
Okay, thank you.
And importantly, in priority 2, we also have 10 hours per week that we're calling flex hours. And so this is something that we've found in this past year, is that throughout the year, we might get requests from a councillor or a resident for improved service that we weren't aware of at budget time the previous year. And we have to say no because there's no budget, or it's difficult to incorporate. And also there might be, a special event that we would need some budget for. Like this year, we threw in a few buses on Canada Day, for example, and we were able to cover that just by the lack of fuel prices having decreased. So, but this would allow us to be a little bit more flexible and to address needs that arise throughout the year. One example of such a need we've heard from folks who live sort of around the Haviland Club area in downtown.
Yeah.
Generally during the summer, they're quite comfortable walking up to the Confederation Centre. It's within, service distances, but that becomes much more difficult in the winter. And so with flex hours, we might be able to say, okay, let's trial for a few months during the deepest part of the winter when there's ice and slush and snow. Could we try a seasonal winter service downtown, for example. So where we'd like to throw in some flexibility into the budget.
Anna?
Yeah.
So with Hidden Valley, just kind of going back there for a minute, does that route incorporate the affordable housing area? Is that the general catchment area you're referring to it as? Kind of like with the other one was we've referred to the airport as BioVectra and McAleer Drive and
Yes.
Thompson Drive and all that. Does Hidden Valley incorporate the new affordable housing?
Is that the
On
one that's
Malpeque
up
Road?
up near the
it's-
Irving?
It's part of the
The
same
Irving.
road.
Yes, it's part of the same route.
It's part of the same
Yeah,
road?
it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then for priority 3, so this is a smaller part of the request. It would be to take that same separation that we're proposing to do in priority 2, that's been identified by the operator as something that they would very much like to do in the mornings to address current congestion and concerns, that we would just reflect that in the afternoon peak hour as well. And that would be best practice transit route planning. It's generally frowned upon to have a different route in the morning than you do in the afternoon. But to make that change both morning, like the operator has identified it's a need in the morning. To make that change both morning and afternoon to reflect best practice would require a larger investment. But it would mean that we have better clarity for our transit riders. If they're getting on Route 11, they come home on Route 11. If they get on Route 12 in the morning, they come home on Route 12, rather than needing to understand that, you know, their schedule is a little bit more complicated because the routes themselves change at midday. So that's the third priority.
Councillor Twill, Councillor Beck,
No, it's good.
questions? No, it's a good breakdown. It's a good breakdown as to the proposed revitalizing of the routes, the recalibration of the routes. Breakdown Hidden Valley versus the airport, McAleer Drive. There's a lot of people working through McAleer Drive. I wonder sometimes, are we getting them there early enough? Like, is the bus able to take the work? Some of the workers gotta be there for 7. So are we getting the workers there? And I've heard that on a few occasions. So as this system continues to evolve, there's gonna be adjustments and there's gonna be adjustments. I mean, it's a moving target. I understand that. I do have a question. With the reduction of international students at the University Holland College, what has the impact and effect been on the transit? I believe I read somewhere in the media where it's had I don't know if the word is a detrimental effect, but nonetheless, it's had an impact and effect on the ridership of transit, and it has had an effect, which I believe it does, from what I read. In terms of percentages, what would you clock that at?
Just for information, at the February meeting, the chair did present those numbers, and it's not just students, it's also new Canadians. They're being caught up in this immigration policy, so it was more than just students,
It was, yeah, I know, but the students was just as an open.
but it was in her, it was in her package. February meeting.
So this question is actually addressed in the first of my reports, so it's on page 9 of your package. Our ridership decreased for the first time last year, in a long time, aside from the COVID pandemic. It decreased by 1%. And that's actually very favourable when you compare transit ridership nationally. Nationally, on average, transit systems decreased ridership about 3 or 4% last year, and that's nearly entirely due to the reduction in international students. Some cities that have very high international student populations saw decreases of 14 to 20%. But the good news is that it's not of long-term concern for our system. If you look at the number of student passes alone, that should have been a decrease of like 6 to 10%. That's of our transit system. But the fact that we only decreased by 1% means that we had growth, and this is reflected. I actually discussed this with Homeon last week, and he showed me in January we had lower student passes sold than this time last year, but we had higher number of adult passes sold, and so that's a very positive thing, because it means that people who are, lifelong residents in the community are using the system to get to work. And international students might be more transient, they might be here for a few years and then off to another place. So our long-term ridership is increasing. We can expect that student numbers on transit will continue to decrease this year because the federal immigration policy changes will take 3 or 4 years because students sign up for a 3 or 4 year program. And so we will continue to see student pass numbers decrease in this coming year. But I think with the introduction of weekend and evening transit, if you choose to support that budget request, then that will more than make up for the loss in international student numbers.
Second?
So again, when you look at the anticipated decrease, you're looking at a window of 3 to 4 years.
Yes.
In anticipation of that, because as you pointed out, when they do sign up for a program at the university, it's usually for 4 years. So I've often wondered what, in terms of percentages, what would be the real impact? A reasonable projection when you're working with the service provider and you're anticipating, okay, there's gonna be a drop off, what would the drop off look like? And while that's taking place, as you pointed out, more lifelong residents are starting to use a transit system because it's much more cost effective for obvious reasons. So with the increase in lifelong residents, that would fill that void and continue on with a reasonable expectation that the numbers will be, say, maybe status quo, or if there's gonna be an increase, it could be 1%, 2%. Well, we're not looking at, 5 or 10 or 15 or 20%.
I think if we did not increase our service, if we didn't change our service, if we just kept it at the status quo, I think that next year we might expect a 3 or 4% decrease.
What's that based on?
That's based on the number of students at UPEI and how it's projected to decrease by, a further 300 or 400 students. And then
But you know that students, part of their registration
Of
fee,
course.
they pay
yes,
for the transit system.
I am very
That-
well aware. Yes,
Yeah, so.
yeah.
those-
So I've taken all of that
So you've
into
already
account.
looked into those numbers and determined that, okay.
Yeah. So my estimate this year is 6 to 10% decrease for this past year, and I think for the next year it should be 3 or 4%
Okay.
decrease for the overall ridership of the transit system. The number of student passes has already dropped by 15%, just student passes, but that's largely Holland College students. So UPEI students have transit included in their fees, but Holland College students have to purchase separate passes. So both UPEI and Holland College have been affected. And of course, that's a significant portion of our transit ridership, but our overall transit system does serve the broader community. The number of seniors using transit is consistent. So I think in the long term, it's not a big threat.
Councillor Beck.
Yeah, I want to go back to the student part. Do students in the public schools branch get free access to?
Yes.
They do, don't they?
Yes, up to age 18.
Up
so,
to age
yeah.
18. So, this might kind of sound like a stupid question, but if I had, and I don't have a teenage daughter, but if I had a teenage daughter and a few of her friends decided on a Saturday morning they want to go to the mall and they want to take the bus.
Mhm.
They've never taken the bus before. What do they do? Do they just show up
Bus
and
stop.
do they know, but do they have to present some sort of ID or
Yeah.
how do they get access onto the
Yeah.
bus?
They only need to, if they're under 18, they only need to show proof of age that they're under 18, and then our drivers record that as a under 18 fare. And then the province, the reason that that's free is that the province subsidizes those fares for the system.
Okay.
Yeah.
And our numbers on that demographic, have we kind of captured what they are? Are they going up? Are we seeing an increase in user, decrease? Where
That's a good question. I don't have the answer for you at this time, but I
Yeah,
can,
could
I can
you-
follow that up
yeah,
with
okay,
our
thanks.
operator, yeah.
Okay, just, you have to go, just give us a couple minutes. So just on page 17, your business case, 85,500 your first year. That's your business case, 19% of service costs. Then you're expected to increase 50% of service costs after 3 years.
Yes.
So did you project those through the provider, or did you work with our finance department in trying to make these projections? Because your fuel is at 118,000, correct, total? That's today's. Because we don't have any electric buses or not any in the queue, we're gonna be dependent on fossil fuels. So could you just,
So
Those
where the projected revenue came from?
yeah, was
Yeah.
that some,
So those are assumptions that are based on the modelling by our consultant on the 10-year transit plan.
WSP?
They were left turn, right turn.
Yeah.
And we know that when we introduce a new transit service, it doesn't just automatically switch on, everybody's using it on the first day. People who need it and they're following transit closely, they might become aware of it, but over the first year, ridership will tend to be low and slowly increasing, and then it will reach what will be its long-term ridership after about 3 years. And so that's what we're projecting and modelling there, where I'm trying to be accurate in our cost forecasts, and I'm trying to be conservative in our revenue forecast so that we're not being overly optimistic.
So, Councilor Beck, just 1 second. So the 85,500, is that, I think the current fee is $2?
Yep, $2
So
per
we're looking
trip
at-
for,
That going up, or is that staying within the $2? Because, Councilor Twill, that's going back to that entrepreneurial model that the provider talks about, keep it affordable and people will use it. Is that
this is assuming no change there.
staying at $2?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Good, Councilor Beck, do you
Yeah,
wanna?
good, yeah.
Okay, just under new business, I just want to bring this up, I will ask that Nick, if Nick can just reach out to Sonnen Home Battery, and they would love to come in to make a presentation to the Standing Committee for Environment Sustainability, and it's
An
on.
island company?
The island connection is with Duncan Shaw, who owned Pre-Built Steel. And I think the discussion that was to take place between our point person, Nick Walker. Nick was out on leave last week, so try to get more information. And that will go through the chair of the committee, Councillor Trevor McKinnon, to find out if it's been on the agenda. Okay. Motion to adjourn? Motion moved, second. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Actually, so